Aloha friends and neighbors, Rollin Frost here, Kona Astrologer. We're going to do show 950 weeks. We've done this. Thanks for inviting me into your living room. We're going to go over the middle week of February 2015 in the sky mirror next. And the good news, well, let's see, I got a few notes here of interest. Yes, you're going to get some Ben Franklin. There's a new moon on Wednesday the 18th coming up at the very end of Aquarius. But most of all, you're on Mercury retrograde. I mean, Mercury direct. What am I saying? 2 days ago, if you're on the Thursday show on the 12th, 2 days before that, Mercury stopped in the sky, reverse direction, and went forward. So Mercury is very powerful right now. Your mind, the words, communications. Now, for the next few weeks, he's going to go over ground he's already been over, you know. And he's moved. You got to think graphically. Here's Mercury. He's gone over this ground. Then he goes retrograde. He goes back over the ground again. Then he goes direct. Now he's going over the ground the third time. You can polish that stuff and it. Wow. Up here ahead there's virgin ground too. So it's a good time for writing, teaching, talking, doing mercurial things. And here's a biggie. We're going to talk about this. Mars is conjunct Venus. Yes. It's happening, and it's going on all week for you. It just gets tighter and tighter and tighter in the sky mirror. Here's Venus, 21 Pisces, and Mars is at 25 Pisces when you start your next week. Now, towards the end of next week, both of these planets, they speed up. See, Venus is going faster than Mars. So Venus is going to go by Mars and kind of light the football player up, and he's going to want some sweets. So in your life, sex will seem more physical, and there'll be a certain attractiveness about doing macho stuff. Now, don't bite, okay? My cat, I see, gets all randy and bites at this time. More on that later. Anyway, Venus is going to go by Mars, and the last Thursday, Friday of your next week, it all goes into Aries. And the character of these two changes. Mars and Venus are Romeo and Juliet, and you'll see them walking along the street. You'll see the young man and the young lady in love and hand in hand. And Pisces right now, so they're very colorful. They look like spiritual, artistic people. You know, and that's very sweet. Venus likes Pisces. Of course, Mars doesn't like it much because it's a water sign. Now, once they go into Aries, it all changes. And sometimes they could decide there's a trine to Saturn up ahead. Not this coming 10 days for you, but just after that, Mars and Venus together will trine Saturn. Maybe a few of them will tie the knot. Anyway, this is a big thing. And when they change sign, Mars and Venus won't be dressed in colorful, swirling Pisces colors of the water. They'll go into sports clothes and red, and they'll start doing, tennis. Yeah, you'll see. They all turn into young athletes when Venus and Mars goes into Aries. It's very different, Aries is. It's ruled by Mars. Very different than Pisces, ruled by Neptune. So that's a fun thing to watch. And you will see them. Okay, let's go around this day by day for you and see what's going on. Got a chart all drawn up. Here's the old Saturn squaring Neptune. Uh-oh, there's some things are not good there. These two giant planets. And there's Uranus squaring Pluto. These guys aren't getting along either. Obstacles, but Jupiter is here, trining Uranus. Good news. We just found out the mayor dropped his plans for the incinerator. Yeah. The guy said it was because the economics are bad. And that was the only reason he did it. Whew. Or better, he'd have said, I listened to everybody, decided to drop it. You get more respect that way, huh? But Jupiter still forced the right thing. And a lot of stuff is opening up to give you more freedom and independence. At the same time, a lot of stuff's closing down with these squares. Eek. And Romeo and Juliet are dancing through it all as if they don't care. They're just a little stoned or drunk or something here as you go through the next 5-6 days. Okay, here's the moon going around the edge of this planetary pattern. And as it does, it makes angles to the various actors on the stage. I note them here in red and blue. The good easy ones, trines and sextiles, are in blues. Squares and oppositions produce energy, and difficulties are in red. If you're in a Thursday night show, Thursday morning was nice. It was a Mercury thing. But Thursday, there's a Neptune square. Confusion, delusion, too much music, bad smell. You're feeling it now if you're on Thursdays, the 12th of February. And Mercury, of course, he's very strong. So maybe you can talk your way out of it Friday morning, but don't expect Thursday night to be clear and focused. He's in Sagittarius, and on Friday the 13th, is that a big deal? Really isn't for me, I got to tell you. It's just a calendrical thing. I'm not superstitious. In fact, there's a beautiful thing going on here early Friday morning, because the moon in Sagittarius makes a trine to Uranus and then a trine to Jupiter. And the lawyers come out and say, your individual freedom is the most important thing ever. Yeah, pretty neat. So there's this easy enlightenment. Trines just fall in your lap. But here's the nasty old squares to Venus. She's not happy. There's no sweets, no sex, no love. That's all frustrating Friday night, 13th. So go for intellectual enlightenment in the morning and afternoon and give up on it. By the time you get to midnight, 1, 2 a.m. Saturday, the moon squares Mars. And everybody's a little ticked off. Juliet didn't show up, and Mars is stomping around, throwing a tantrum. So don't stay up late. My little friend just came up here and nuzzled my leg and said hello. Nice little cat. They call him Shadow. He looks you right in the eye. He's very telepathic. And he kind of came to us accidentally about 6 months ago and has made a friend of everybody. Huh, Shadow? You're a good little boy. Now, Saturday, the moon is moved into Capricorn in the afternoon. I mean, you could still be angry Saturday morning from that Mars square, but there's a nice sun sextile that comes up here after the Mars. After you lose your temper, Friday night, Saturday morning, then you'll kind of get your head straight and go for the project. Go for what you want to do, because the sextile to the sun comes after the bad square to Mars. So it's kind of like an answer to the problem. Saturday could be okay. When you get into Saturday, whoops! Little guy just jumped right up on the chart. What are you doing here? I'm recording. You can't come and interrupt that. What are you sitting on? Get off the charts here, kid. Come on. My territory. Well, his name is Shadow, because he followed everybody around. Can't see him at night. Okay, Saturday night, the 14th. Here's a nice sextile to Neptune. There's music. There's brotherhood, there's sharing. You know, it's a kind of a feeling of the higher heart soars a little bit Saturday night. Not like Friday night. Friday night is the fights. Saturday night is time for song and music. Religion, art, music. The vibes continue pretty much through Sunday, the 15th of February. But as you get closer to the middle of the day, you get into range of that Uranus-Pluto square, and zap, the lights go out. The airlines don't run. Of course, this isn't as bad as it's been for a while now because of that lunation on this square. Exaggerated it all. Every weekend, all the airlines stopped. But this is the moon going by Pluto on Sunday, the 15th. So everybody's concern is about police and guns and power and control, epidemics, vaccinations, needles, drugs. No, drugs are Neptune. Anyway, here's that startle reflex, huh? Here's your panic reflex being set off on Sunday. And some of you may have charts to go off a little earlier. I woke up at 3 a.m. in the morning. Beep, 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 beep. Finally, I got up and went and looked. The cats had been fooling around, knocked the phone off the hook, and it squawks until you hang it up. Well, there's all kinds of little reasons, but Sunday will be one of those interesting interrupted days, and don't count on having the normal control of things you do. Monday, the moon's still in Capricorn, and probably you still be thinking about what happened Sunday, and but here's a nice sextile to Venus. Aha, Monday morning, early, be with somebody you love. There's some peace and quiet and nice stuff. Venus is there. Oh, nice. Mars, too, huh? Doesn't come in until the afternoon, the sextile to Mars. But he's there, and Romeo's a little late. Venus put her perfume on, waited a couple hours. But still, it's very romantic. And the main thing is, you're in the Mercury zone. And, this Mercury's just stopped. And it's moving slowly going forward. It has a nice sextile, the dotted blue line over to Saturn. So your thinking and your words, communication, transportation is very responsible, well organized. And so you feel like writing it down on Monday afternoon and evening. Do it. Do it. Good time for signing important papers and contracts and making deals. Mercury is a guy that loves to make deals. And with a sextile to Saturn, in the old days, the big clock on the square was a big chart, and everybody hung around on the square. And when the Capricorn was rising, that's Saturn, they would all make their contracts. They'd have a 2-hour deal, but they wanted to make sure it was Capricorn. That's Saturn. So this is a good time for contracts and things. There's a feeling of brotherhood here also because Mercury's in Aquarius. There's a high X side to this thing. Kind of nice. Moon into Aquarius, Monday afternoon. Vibes change. You get very mercurial. You're walking and talking and getting organized. It's good. And still in Aquarius on Tuesday the 17th. And here's a nice sextile to Uranus. And all the technical stuff is going. And let's put this machine on. Oh, wait a minute. There's an opposition to Jupiter. I got to check with the lawyers. Or maybe we're trying to do too much. Not sure. But it isn't exactly clear sailing as you thought it would be back on Friday the 13th when the Uranus and the Jupiter were in trines and harmonies. And this machine will work great. And you were right. But, when you get to, where are we? When you get to here, good Uranus, but Jupiter's in the way. Too much. Overdoing it. So that's Tuesday. Moon in Aquarius. Still in Aquarius Wednesday right through till about dinner time. And you're going into the new moon zone. There's a new moon at 29 Aquarius here. So it's a good time to be with somebody that you plan on spending a nice month with. New moons are like new beginnings, They're time when mother and father in the sky get together, have a meeting, and say, okay, let's do it this way for a month. Now, the difficulty that mom and dad here, the sun and the moon, are trying to get together and start their month off is that there's a square to Saturn. Square to Saturn comes up Wednesday night. There's limitations here. Up until this time, you had a good month when the new moon sextiled Saturn, and you got very organized with Saturn. Rules, regulation, taxes, authority, responsibility. But now we got a new moon that squares Saturn. We're going to get stuck. And we're going to get bogged down in Saturn stuff. Could be ice and snow. Could be a month of it. If I was the another month, yeah, you're going to be stuck with cold and not liking it. So, whatever plans you make on this new moon, be aware things are going to go slower and be colder and drier. But there is hope up ahead. Here's the conjunction to Neptune. Doesn't happen till 11, 12 o'clock Wednesday night. Here's the planet of Jesus and the higher heart. And And inspiration, hooray, yeah, it'll be okay. Have a little music. Moon's in Pisces. As soon as the moon shifts into Pisces about noontime on Wednesday, it'll all feel, more happy, more faith, more, continues through Thursday. You even get discovery feels powerful Thursday in the middle of the day. Nice sextile to Pluto here. Oh, we discovered some new stuff. What's up ahead? Well, look at here. Here's Venus zone. Starts late Thursday night, but by this time Venus and Mars are down here. So you'll feel it with the moon in Pisces a little bit, but then there'll be could I call it a zap when the moon when the moon crosses into Aries? Let's see, when is that? This is 2 a.m. midnight, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, pretty almost close to the middle of the day. 10, 11 o'clock, moon shifts into Aries. So you're going to feel the zap here Friday in the middle of the day. Depends on your location a little bit, but you'll be a Venus and Mars. Maybe there's a famous young couple. Here's the prince and the princess, something like that. Or maybe you'll just, here, look, let's get serious. What happens when Venus goes by Mars? Let's look at it from Mars' standpoint. Here's the young warrior. Here's a football player, handsome young Aries guy, the the worker, the physical guy, the soldier, the young hero. Here's Romeo. What happens when Venus goes by there? Well, he tends to get softer and kind of give up, and he wants sweets and sex and orgasm and pleasure, and he can tend to forget some of his macho things. Well, you put down your spear, Mars, so you could go and sip some sweets. And so it softens Mars to have Venus go by Mars. You look at it from the viewpoint of the other person. Here's Juliet. How about her? How's she feel? Well, she's trekking along, and suddenly, she comes into with Mars, and she gets hot, and she gets physical. Mars is very physical. Give me the physical pleasures of life. And suddenly Venus, who's this sweet, circle of spirit over the cross of matter and doesn't care for matter, suddenly gets all involved with matter. It gets physical, this pleasure thing. And she gets heated up. Heat Venus up, cool Mars off, and they come together in Aries, a hot sign. Well, no telling what'll happen. But it is trining Saturn. Hopefully, if you've got a son or a daughter out there playing in this game, they'll have good sense. And the good sense will come up, Friday afternoon and evening with the trine to Saturn. But this conjunction is very interesting, and we're going to do a little Ben Franklin on this. Friday night, the moon's in Aries. There's a nice sextile to Mercury, write, teach, talk, listen to the kids. On Saturday morning, the moon goes by the south node real early. This is 2 o'clock in the morning, and I feel like we all need help. So you're better off if you go to sleep early and sleep through that middle of the night. Saturday morning, you're in the zap zone. Here's Uranus squaring Pluto. Now, he doesn't have the full moon on him now. He's done the square. The police aren't going to kill the homeless guy or the astrologer or the scientist or the independent free thinker. No. Pluto doesn't. But here's Jupiter trining. The lawyers, professors, wise men, the truth of what Uranus, the newsman, was trying to say. The Aquarian spirit comes out. And the timing is kind of fine here because, Uranus is at 14, but Pluto's going up to 15, and there's a policeman saying, "Shut up, you can't publish that." Remember the guys that brought down the cartoonist, huh? And the outrage in Europe. Yeah, we've already had 6 months of the lunations on these things, so you just finished up one. A lot of sensitivity still here, but a lot of truth and honesty coming out too. So it's a very interesting Saturday, the 21st of February. Sunday continues kind of with those vibes through the afternoon. Well, almost noontime here, and the moon shifts into Taurus. You're kind of out of the zap zone. doesn't feel so electric and so shaky. Things settle down more. In fact, here, Sunday night, there's a nice sextile to the sun, nice sextile to Neptune. We got a plan, and we had a glass of wine, and we're feeling good about it all. Be a little careful on Monday. There's a square to Mercury, so communication, transportation's hard early. It's no biggie. You know, it looks like you recovered Sunday night. You know, yeah, celebrate. It was a tough Saturday. Ooh. This is an important quote for our time. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, we have been terribly and systematically misled for nearly 70 years in the United States, and apologizes for his role. This is about pot. 70 years. We have been terribly and systematically misled. Okay? Now, here's an even bigger conspiracy. Benjamin Franklin said, "Shame to the age we live in," about astrology. First, let me show you the Mars-Venus quote. By the way, Ben Franklin published this personally for money. He claimed he was an astrologer. Indeed, there was only 3 or 4 of them in the United States that made almanacs, and Ben never signed his own name to anything. No, so he was Richard Saunders, but he did this for 25 years. Published an almanac, you know, with all the planetary positions. The more I read of Ben Franklin, the more enamored I am. It happens he was born on the same day I was. Me and Ben, Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King. Anyway, Ben wrote this for 25 years, and here's what he had to say about Mars and Venus. Okay, 1735 almanac. And Ben wrote, "When Mars and Venus in conjunction lie, then maids, whate'er is asked of you, deny." Now this was printed with these glyphs, and, you know, here's the thing. People who bought his almanac, and it was the most popular thing next to the Bibles on everybody's shelf, they understood Mars and Venus and the sign for conjunction. They understood some astrology. Even then, Ben said, "Shame to the age we live in that, you know, they don't use it, it's not more respected." This is an important year, 1751. Now, he said, "Shame to the age we live in. Now the noble art, more shame has dwindled into contempt." And they say, everybody, in the old days, no important affair was undertaken without first consulting an astrologer who examined the aspects and configures and marked the lucky hour. There it is. Now, Ben was very aware that the rising sign was the lucky hour. And, try to do things with Capricorn rising if you're going to make laws. Anyway, more on the whole thing is that this book I got a hold of, it doesn't have any of the astronomical, they call it, or technical data. So I've never seen another copy of it, but there's a note on the text, and it says what they did is they took the words out, but meteorological and astronomical material has been omitted, as well as a few factual articles which poor Richard contributed neither his wit nor his wisdom. They censored this, and they took all the astrology out. And this was done by Saturday Evening Post. It's interesting, Ben's almanac morphed into the Saturday Evening Post down the line. Yeah. And these guys published this nice coffee table book along with all these neat old paintings from Saturday Evening Post, see? And but there's no astronomical stuff, no numbers. Now, Ben identified a few astronomers, Newton, Halley, and Whiston, and he talked about them in plural, these new scientists who wouldn't stand up for astrology, never studied it, and didn't defend it. Now, the doctor thing is very similar. Here's Sanjay Gupta saying, We've been terribly and systematically misled for nearly 70 years about pot. Holy cow, well, you know, this, and Franklin said we've been terribly and systematically misled about astrology for a long time. What is this? Are these conspiracies by wise, evil people? No, well, I think it's just like Ben said, the ignorant herd of mankind tends to follow some experts, and so just a few people steer the herd. Remember the 100 monkeys theory? You know, yeah. 100 monkeys. There's all these islands in Japan, and they have these. They really love these monkeys. They're very large, intelligent creatures. Some of these islands are 800,000 miles off, and they have these little colonies there taking care of these little characters. But they were having trouble. They were starting to starve, and so they brought in bags of potatoes and dropped them by helicopters because they want to contaminate the monkey culture. And smart guys, these Japanese. But the monkeys didn't like the potatoes. And finally, one day, a female monkey on this island took her potato down to the ocean and washed it in the salt water. And she loved it. And she taught a couple other monkeys to do it on this island. And there was a strange thing. They were watching all of these islands. But when 100 monkeys, roughly, on this island learned to wash their potatoes in the salt water, spontaneously, all the other monkeys on all the other islands began to wash potatoes. It's called the 100 monkey theory. Yeah, so we don't have to convince all of the ignorant herd of mankind, that astrology works and they should look into it to their enlightenment. No, just 100 monkeys is all. In the next week or so, I'll be giving you a report on my mainland travels, and particularly my travels into Colorado, where I bought legal pot in a store like anything else. Maggie's Farm was one of them. Anyway, I got to tell you about it because here suddenly I was in the country of the free, and it was a wonderful experience, even though it was cold. This horrible drug war for 70 years has affected me radically. I smoked my first joint when I got back from the Army after Tripler Hospital. Didn't affect me at all. But that was early 60s. But I think the carnage in our society to hold down the best people, Woodstock generation, is dreadful. And the drug war is their main tool. It's still going on. They're demonizing anything they can get their hands on. Keep the cops on their road. Yeah, busting your car and your airport trip. I'm so happy to be home. The flight from hell, that was my airplane trip home. More on that later. Aloha.